this video, I will show you how to create different types of buffers and buffer basics in QGIS. Load the exercise data into QGIS. You can see that a roads layer is drawn in the map canvas. Double-click on the roads layer and open the symbology tab. And I'd just like to change the color of the roads to black so that they're easier to see and work with. Without any manipulation of the roads or any prior planning, I'm just going to open the vector tools, open the geoprocessing tools, and open the buffer dialog box. Let's make a 20. But you can see here, this is degrees, and there's already a warning given to you by QGIS that the distance is in geographic degrees, and they suggest reprojecting the data. For now, I'm not going to reproject the data so that you can see what happens with the buffer. So I'm going to continue and accept all the defaults, except I'm going to choose to dissolve the result and run the buffer tool. Once the tool has run, you can see that the buffer actually takes up the whole screen. And I'm going to have to zoom to full extent. If I drag the buffer to below the roads, you can see the tiny little dot that the roads create and a massive buffer that has been drawn around it. And that's because the roads layer was not correctly projected, that there was no distance associated with the buffer, and it was actually in map degrees. So I'm going to start off by removing this buffer. I'm going to click on it and press Ctrl D and say remove. Zoom back to the extent of the roads, and I'm going to create a new layer that is projected. I'm going to go into layer. I'm going to go into save as. I'm going to leave it as the type of data it already is. And I'm going to navigate to our exercise folder, and I'm going to save this and call it roads _ 3857. Save that. For the coordinate reference system, we're going to click on this, and we would like to use the UTM-33 South. So you can see that there are a couple of UTM-33 Souths. I happen to know that this is a roads layer from the Cape Town region of South Africa. So I'm going to look for somewhere that really talks to that area. That looks like a pretty decent projection for the Cape Town area, and click OK. The layer has now been added successfully. Oh, there's a question mark here. Oh. Okay, well, click on that, and for some reason it didn't pick up the coordinate reference system we saved it with, so just click on it here and say OK. And now the roads layer should be properly referenced. So I'm going to turn off the other roads layer, double click on this one, and make it black so that we can see it easily. Okay, okay, great. Now I'm going to get another buffer for the roads layer, and this time I'm going to just search buffer in the bottom left hand. Double click on the buffer and it will open the same buffer dialog box. I would like to buffer the roads 3857. I would like it to be a 20-meter buffer. You can see now that there is meters here. You can choose kilometers, feet, miles, but there is no longer a warning message because we've now correctly projected our data. I'm going to accept the rest of the defaults for now, and I'm going to choose not to dissolve the result and run the buffer. Then secondly, I would like to make a dissolved result. So tick dissolved result and run the buffer. Close the dialog box and zoom into an area. Now the yellow buffer is a dissolved result. If I turn that off, you can see the red buffer is a non-dissolved result. So in the non-dissolved, QGIS has actually drawn a buffer on each segment or each line that is a road. And they are not connected together, they are each an individual buffer. In the dissolved result, all of them have been connected into one interconnected polygon layer. Lastly, I would like to show you how to create a variable distance buffer. We drag the roads up here so they're at the top. All right, zoom out to the extent. So variable distance buffers allow you to make buffers of different sizes around different lines. Right now I'm going to show you how to make one that's got randomly assigned distances and then explain why they're actually quite useful in different situations. So open the attribute table for the roads 3857. All right. Click on the toggle editing and open the field calculator. We'd like to create a new field. And this field we're going to be calling buffer distance. I'm happy with the whole number integer. And what I want to do is randomly assign a value to the distance buffer. So I'm going to use the rand function and put in random distance between 10 and 80. You can see the preview here, it's just made a distance of 50 and press OK. You can see our distance buffer field has been created and that for each instance or each row, it has created a random distance. Save your changes and click toggle editing off. Exit the attribute table. And now we're going to create the vary distance buffer. Open your buffer tool by double clicking on it. And we would like the roads 3857. Then for the distance of the buffer, we're going to click on the data defined override, which is on the right. And we'd like it to be by field type and by our buffer distance. I'm going to choose to dissolve the buffer for this one and click Run. Once the tool is run, you can see that the buffers for each of the roads have been randomly assigned a distance, and some of them are really thick and some of them are really skinny. I'm just going to pull that to be below the roads. Now, a variable distance buffer is really useful for, in example, this case, if we are looking to make a pedestrian path near the road and we would like the buffer for a highway to be much larger than a buffer for a suburban or secondary road. So this road, for example, that has a large buffer is a highway, and we don't want to make a pedestrian road close to that because it's dangerous because of high speeding cars. But this road here that has a very thin buffer is a suburban road where cars are not traveling at high speed, and the pedestrian path can be much closer to that road. That's where a variable distance buffer would come in useful in a real world situation.